Welcome to a new episode of the Startup Show. Today we are here at the Start Summit conference in St.Gallen, and I'm very happy to meet with a friend from back in Israel. Ben Lang, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to a new episode of the Startup Show. It's really exciting to be here. One of the biggest, or if not the biggest, student-organized startup event in the world. It's a great pleasure also to have a friend from Israel here in Switzerland. So for the two people watching that don't know you yet, so give a little bit of a short introduction of who you are.
So I'm Ben. I am originally from New York, and I've spent the past few years in Israel, serving in the military, working for a VC firm, working for a few startups, and eventually building my own company. And that's what I've spent the past few years doing.
Good. So maybe you can tell a little bit, like maybe what fascinates you about, like, let's say, entrepreneurship and the ecosystem in Tel Aviv, because probably a lot of my audience now is new and a lot of Swiss audience. So we can introduce them a little bit to the Tel Aviv startup ecosystem.
Yeah, I've always been incredibly fascinated by the ecosystem in Tel Aviv. I think it's just a super vibrant community. The military obviously plays a huge role in that, which is part of the reason I served in the army. A huge part of your network there is who you knew from the army, and I think it also creates a special, like, unique type of personality for the entrepreneurs there with that unique experience. So I think that's what's been the most interesting part about just being a part of that ecosystem.
Tell us a little bit before we go a little bit about your latest project. Maybe you can tell us a little bit of like what you see here at the Start Summit versus like what you experienced in Israel.
Well, I can say it's definitely one of the best organized conferences I've ever been to. I mean, in Israel, it's always a little bit more of a balagan, a little bit of a mess, and here everything is on time and super well organized, and I've been incredibly impressed so far.
Very cool. So give us a little bit of background about your latest venture, Mapme. Maybe you can explain a bit like what your role is now, like how you started it.
So it started as a side project of mine, basically mapping the Israeli tech ecosystem. Eventually, we turned it into a platform for creating interactive maps, and that just came out of this organic demand of people asking, hey, can you help us create this interactive map of X or Y? And we built this platform, and we have users kind of from the real estate space, the travel ecosystem, governments, nonprofits, and they're all using it for all these different kind of mapping related projects. And the idea is that we make it really, really easy to build all these super interactive and customizable stories and visualizations and communities on top of maps without any coding. So it saves you a lot of time, and it's really cool the things you can do with it.
Maybe you can pinpoint one of these great examples that you say, like, this is a really cool project, how like one of your customers used your product.
I mean, it's super, super diverse. Let's say we have a very big organization in England using it to map like the impact of the LGBT community. We have someone now who's working on mapping like diversity in tech. People who've mapped with the whiskey ecosystems in Ireland, and really anything you want, like you can kind of, anything you can put on a map, you can do it with us.
Tell us a little bit of the process of raising money. You went through this.
Yeah, so for me it was the first time raising money. It was incredibly difficult, and hopefully next time I'll build something where it's profitable from day one and I won't have to raise money. I think that's what I learned primarily. So that's my goal for the next one.
It's interesting that you say that, because many startup people, when I met them in Israel, it was exactly that point. Like, we have a presentation, we don't have a business model at all, and then they start and then they realize this, and on the other hand, here in Switzerland, you have the people who say like, well, I need a perfect business plan, I need a perfect this, but then they're maybe a little bit late to market. So there's like a very interesting difference between, let's say, these two ecosystems that I've experienced.
Yeah, that is very different.
So tell us, like you are in entrepreneurship since you're very young, where you see yourself in the next few years?
I'm just optimizing for learning as much as possible, and eventually I'll start something again and really just take as much as I've learned over these experiences. And I think it's rare to be successful in the first time and maybe the second time, and who knows. I think it's really just a learning process and taking what you learn onto the next thing. So
absolutely. Maybe one last tip for first timers. You can say like what they should look for besides profitability that you just mentioned.
I mean, a really practical thing, I think just being good at cold emails. I think sending cold emails is just incredibly important. I've sent like thousands, if not tens of thousands of them, and since I was, for the past 10 years in tech, and I think nailing down cold emails and finding people's cold emails is a super, super important skill, and it'll get you far if you're good at that.
Right. I think that's a great way to end this show. Thank you very much for the insight. Thank you very much for introducing, coming all the way to Switzerland, which is great.
Of course.
And thank you very much for tuning in into this show. And thank you very much for your attention. See you very soon with a new episode. Have a good day.